This tree is Salix babylonica, weeping willow. Very well-known tree. It's not a lot of places you can use a tree like this because of its size. You're looking at a tree that's about 60 feet wide by 50 feet tall. And it's about a 20-year-old tree, but they get this size very quickly. So in terms of landscape design, as I said, there's not a lot of places you can use this because of how big it becomes. You can see on each end that it's got trees that it's growing over the top of. This thing's an animal. And so if you're going to use it, you'll see a picture that I include in a park. You really need to give it a lot of room. The roots and the canopy are very aggressive and tend to just overwhelm anything that gets in its way. So you want to give it plenty of space to do its thing. And there's not a lot of plants that really want to grow underneath this. There's a few, but this hard fescue is actually a really good example of something to try. When I show you the shot underneath, you'll see that hard fescue, or no-mo that people are calling it nowadays. And that's done fine underneath this tree. Because the canopy comes down so low, it doesn't let a lot of light in there, and the lack of light and the aggressive root system are what make it hard for a lot of plants to handle. So just be aware of try and minimize anything that's going on underneath this if you're going to use it. My recommendation in design is if you have parks or park-like settings, this is on the corner of an entry to a subdivision. But I'd hate to be the house on the other side of that where it's hanging 30 feet into their yard. It's a hard one to pull off in design. And the graceful habit, though, is one of the big things that makes it such an appealing tree. Is there are very few trees, except maybe a maton tree, that have such a graceful weeping appearance. This is a deciduous tree. It's bare in the winter, and so all those leaves are going to drop eventually, and it's usually pretty early to come out of dormancy in the spring, in my experience. And that's about it. This is a water-loving tree. You know, they've got that grass underneath, so it's keeping it real happy because it's getting all the water off of that grass. It's not drought resistant. When you try and cut back the water, you're going to lose a lot of your vegetation and a lot of the density because all those leaves need a lot of water to keep them happy. So that is Salix babylonica, weeping willow. Here's a close-up of the leaves of weeping willow, and you can see how graceful they are. They move in the wind nicely, just drape down. Very elegant kind of feel, and that's a lot of the appeal of this tree. And there's the structure of it. And you'll find that on willows, here's a dead branch, what happens is they grow really fast, so what happens is up underneath, the limbs that don't get enough light start to die out. So I'd say every year to 2 years you're going to get a decent amount of dead limbs on the interior, and they should be cleaned out just to keep the plant healthy and looking good. That's an interior view. You'll see how there's a lot of space under here, and that's what's one of the neat features of these, is underneath it tends to be kind of spacious and shady.